start our recording. Go right ahead.
Are you guys going to do a little intro, or should we jump right into our question? Okay, we'll jump into our question. How did you choose this topic?
Well, we picked this topic because we were really interested in space, and we wanted to pick a mission that was lesser known to the public but equally as significant, as this was the first joint mission between the USA and the USSR that happened during the space race, which was a proxy war that they had during the Cold War.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Yeah.
Why were you so interested in space?
We were actually more interested in the time period of World War II,
Okay.
and when we started researching it, we realized that my partner Callie found about Leica, the dog in space, and from that branched the whole idea of space race, and we realized that the Cold War rooted from the World War II, and so we realized how all those topics tied in together, and so we saw that it connected to all of our interests as well as the scarcity.
So could you talk to us a little bit about your research process?
Well, going through the process, we started initially just researching the entire space race to get back our knowledge, also researching the Cold War because the two were so closely related. And then about halfway through the year, towards December, we started coming up with different missions that we wanted to focus in on because we knew that it had to be a smaller topic because there was no way we were going to be able to do a project on the entire space race because it was such a large idea. So we went through, and when we saw this mission, we thought that it was really important, and it was usually looked over, and we thought that it was worth telling the story.
So what do you think the most valuable resource was that you found?
Well, while we were researching, we found that the NASA website had a lot of information, and as well as other links to other websites that we could go for additional information for everything that we needed.
This is gonna sound ignorant, but do you want to give me some background on Apollo and Soyuz?
Well, the Apollo-Soyuz mission was the first joint space mission between the U.S. and the USSR, as she said earlier. The mission happened in 1975 in July, on July 15th. And it was a very big deal because
It was a really big deal because before this, the astronauts and cosmonauts working in this mission were once enemies competing in a space race. So after competing on each other on who could get to the moon first, who could get into space first and orbit around Earth first, they finally joined up and went on this mission together.
So why was there such a race? What was the whole drive for this?
So the communist USSR had very different political views than the democratic USA, and that was actually before World War II, since after World War I, Germany was left in such a poor state, and both the countries felt animosity towards each other, and USA didn't appreciate the way USSR controlled their countries, and vice versa for USA. But when World War II struck, they had to work together to, of course, fight against the Axis enemies of Germany and Japan. And so for that short period of time, they had to work together and learn to ignore their differences. But right after World War II, they had all these nuclear weapons left over, and so that's hence the name Cold War. Since there was actually no direct fighting, there was simply proxy wars fought, and then there was also a lot of threats of a nuclear war, and then of course the space race branched from that.
So would this be like a cooling down event in a Cold War instead of the opposite of a proxy war, or?
The Cold War still was going on after this mission, but I do think that it brought the countries closer together.
some people believe that it did end the Cold War, but other people believe that it was just merely a part of it.
So some people believe the man never walked on the moon either.
Yeah.
How do you know that?
Well, I guess we don't really know anything for sure, but from what we know about space and what we can tell without going into space, we have to learn to trust the sources we find, especially because NASA is straight from the government, and we also looked at Roscosmos, which is the Russian space agency, and so you just kind of have to trust the sources you get.
Speaking of sources and different opinions, so your thesis is that this was an overall success. Did all of your sources share that assessment? And if not, how did you guys assess your various sources and come to your thesis?
yes, most of the sources all said that it was a success. They, of course, they achieved their goal of having the first joint space mission, docking, having the handshake in space, which is one of the most memorable and important photos on our project, which is right there. And there was one slight issue on the landing when the Apollo ship was landing. They had a problem with the oxygen tanks. There was a faulty problem because they forgot to switch on the Earth landing switch. So the crew ended up being hospitalized for 2 weeks, but everything ended up being okay. So overall, yes, it was definitely a success.
And sorry, to add on to that, some of the cosmonauts and astronauts still have formed a friendship and a relationship that continues today. And just not between personally, but as we said before, between the two countries, we can see that so many missions have branched off of this mission, such as International Space Station, and in 2024, an upcoming space mission, another International Space Station once this one expires, which are all done together from Russia and USA, and then of course some other countries.
Can you chat with us a little bit about how your project fits this year's theme?
Well, this project fits the theme in many different ways. In addition to them clearly exploring space, they did explore the possibilities for forming a relationship between the two countries. They did exchange ideas between the two as they were building this. And in addition, before they had the idea to make this mission, they kind of bounced ideas off each other indirectly. Also, they encountered some problems along the way. As Callie said, they had the issue with the gas, and they probably had some disagreements along the way.
I have one question. You mentioned that most of your sources agreed with it being a success. Did you find in general, and this is more my curiosity, that was there a difference between the USSR view of things in general and what, if you were getting Soviet sources and American sources, I would assume at that time they were kind of polarized, or was it more scientific and like very...
I feel like it was really professional and scientific throughout this mission, but of course the animosity from the past is still there. I mean, if you go up to certain people, still they'll say, "Oh, we were really the first ones who made it to space. We were the first ones to have a landing on space. Like the moonwalk was fake." All of that different things.
Okay, so you did find some of that. There were some.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I feel like it was mostly scientific and professional.
Did you ever come across any research about the propaganda of it behind it, either by either country? Doing the propaganda, the way it was portrayed, or headlines and...
Well, I mean, of course, it made headline news all over. If you look, right here, this was on the Prescott Courier. There was also several other newspaper articles that had different articles about this particular mission, because of course it was really important, and there's also sources in Russian and in English too that have different sources that are.
Yeah, for instance, like Russia puts first segment International Space
Yeah.
Station. I mean, was that a
That
partisan headlines or perspectives of... That's 1998. But
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's all right. I mean,
Let's talk about the structure of your display. Explain the choice of this rotating platform in the middle. What's its symbol? How is it?
Well, we wanted to show the Earth. One of the reasons is because, of course, they made it into space, and that's still huge. Although this shows that it's kind of far off, we had to be scientifically accurate in as many ways as we could. Whereas this ship would have been closer to the Earth than it actually is in this model. Also, they never actually went to the moon, but we wanted to give the proximity of space and give the feel too.
There's one thing. Was there anything you would work on if you moved on to nationals? If you were going, is it a process or something you're like, we could change this part to make it better? Anything?
Well, we struggled through many difficulties when making this project. So I think one of our biggest issues with our display is that the globe is like the Apollo-Soyuz spacecraft wasn't exactly over Antarctica, so it was kind of scientifically wrong, but we just really wanted to give view of the Earth and the moon.
There's also stuff that we would work on as a lot of people gave us feedback. We had an exposition here in SAS where a lot of people gave us feedback that we didn't have a lot of time to complete, such as some of the like design. There's some slight design flaws that we would like to work on, and also I was writing the captions and I felt that they could have a lot more interpretation and analyzation other than just kind of listing the facts.
We also wanted to work on, obviously we'll work on everything and look through everything and make sure everything's ready to go. We'll probably change the appearance in some way, and then we'll probably work on the process paper and bibliography, of course still adding different research elements, because you never can stop researching.
We got about 2-3 minutes.
Were you guys able to interview anybody for this project?
Once after the visiting author for the middle school, Steve Shinkin, came to visit, we talked to him very recently, and although he didn't know much about our mission in general, he knew a lot about why the tensions rose so much, so that really gave us a good insight on our topic.
We were also able to contact 2 people who worked at NASA, Mr. Justin Tillman and Mr. Daniel Burbank. Also, I was able to contact an astrophysicist who also worked at NASA, which gave a different perspective to the whole thing, to look at the science instead of the more political views. And we got in touch with a few other people, few other organizations like the NASA organization and the California Space Science Center.
How do you feel about space now?
Would you like to go to space? Such a tough question. Oh, I would love to go to space now. I mean, one of the most famous quotes is, "It's been a great experience. I don't think there's any way anybody can express how beautiful it is up there." And that was by Donald Slayton, and I feel like to actually experience that would be an amazing thing. I would love to do.
Have you been following the story about Scott Kelly's return?
Wasn't he the astronaut that went to space and lived there for a year?
Correct.
It was really amazing how he could take so many pictures and it really looked beautiful. But I wouldn't necessarily want to go to space myself, but yeah, but but I just like love looking at the pictures because you could never see them from Earth because it's pictures of Earth with like really amazing, like I think it was like sunsets or something. I don't know, not particularly sure.
So we're just about out of time. Is there anything else you'd like to be sure to share with us as this wraps up?
I don't think there's anything. We just we hope we can continue with this project. It's something we're really passionate about, and it's something that we know that we can improve on, and we know that we can do a lot better with. And we're also there's also of course aspects that we're proud of, and there's aspects that we want to work on. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.